Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at Ubuntu Desktop. It's a great alternative to your Windows desktop, and I'm just going to show you around, show you all the things that it can do, and show you just a really great alternative to Windows. So let's get started. Quick reminder folks, remember to hit that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm and helps others find quality content on YouTube. Okay everyone, so here we are on our Ubuntu desktop. Now this is a little bit too small for me, so I'm going to go ahead and scale this resolution up so I can see what I'm doing here. And you can see we have our online account. So this is one of the great things about Ubuntu, is that we can connect all of our normal online accounts. So we have Ubuntu Single Sign-On, Google, Nextcloud, and Microsoft as well. Now, most of you are going to have a Microsoft or a Google account, but I'm going to go ahead and connect our Microsoft account. We also want to update our software when we first sign in, but I'm going to do that in a minute. I'm first going to connect our Microsoft account. And we're going to get this prompt. So GNOME is going to need permission from Microsoft to sync and send mail, access our info anytime, and access our email address. And so we're going to go ahead and accept this. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. This is not a requirement to set this up, but we're just doing this to kind of make things easier and to show you guys what you can do with Ubuntu. And now we can see that we've added our Microsoft account, and we can do this later from settings as well. So if you don't want to add all this stuff right out of the box, you can do this later on. So we're going to go ahead and say next. Now the next thing we're going to be prompted to do is set up Live Patch. Now what this does is it allows Ubuntu to patch your system without requiring a restart for the changes to take effect. Now you will need to have an Ubuntu One account in order to use this service, but it's highly recommended that you set it up. You don't have to. Now we're not going to set this up in this video, but it's very easy to set up. Once you have your Ubuntu One account, you just log into that and you can set that up. So we're going to say next. The next thing we're going to be prompted to do is to help improve Ubuntu for everyone else. And basically what this is going to do is send diagnostic information to Canonical to help them improve products. If you're concerned about security or privacy, you may not want to do that. So I'm going to say no, don't send system info. Say next. And the next thing we have is a prompt for location services. Now this is going to allow Ubuntu and other services to access your location. In most cases, this is fine, and it does alert you when your location is being accessed. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on. You can turn this off at a later time in your settings. Now at this point, we're ready to go, and we can see we have all these different apps. And if we want to install additional apps, we can go into software. So I'm going to click on Open Software Now. Now, one of the great things about Ubuntu, folks, is it's going to have this kind of app store. This is their software store. It's going to be like your Windows Store on your Windows devices, Play Store on your Android devices, and App Store on your Apple devices. And you can go up here in the left-hand corner here and search for apps. And if I click on Install, this is going to show me all of the apps that I currently have installed on the system. And I can click on it. And if I click this little red trash can, I can delete it from the system. So you can see this is extremely easy to use. The next thing we have here is updates. And so we can apply application updates here as well. But these are just some of the software applications that we can install when we're at the last screen here on the ready to go. And some of them are really useful. For example, Bitwarden, VLC, you have a Zoom client, Spotify. And then lastly, if we scroll down, we can see categories. And we can go into all these categories. And for example, let's tap on security here. And when I go under security, I can see all the security related apps that I can install on the system. So pretty cool. I'm not going to install anything additional at this time. Now over here on our updates, I always like to go into settings. You can see that we have about 451 or 452 megabytes worth of updates that are available for our system. So I'm going to click on settings, and I always like to go in here and check all my software update settings. One of the big things I like to do is select a mirror that's close to me. This ensures that my downloads are going to be as efficient as possible. So we're going to start over here on the Ubuntu software tab. And you can see that all of these things are downloadable from the internet. We don't need to select source code, but where it says download from, you can see right here we have server for United States, but I'm going to click on there and I'm going to say other. And if we go in here, I can look at all these different mirrors. These are all the different places I can download from. And then I have this button over here that says select best server. And if I click that, it's going to test all the download servers that are available. And it's going to automatically select the best download server for me to use. We'll let this go through its process a moment. And here we are. It's selected the best server for us and the best protocol for us. And so we're going to say choose server. And it's going to ask me to enter my root password, which I'm going to go ahead and do. So now we have the best server selected to download our updates from. And if for some reason you made changes here and you don't like what you've done, there's a revert button down here at the bottom. We're going to go over to other software. And in here we can add things. We can add app repositories. This is kind of more advanced stuff. We're not going to do this right now, but in there you can add app repositories. You can also edit or remove them if you need to for whatever reason. And next we have our update preferences. Now, when we go into our update preferences, we have basic security maintenance available until April 21st of 2027. Now, if you have a long-term release of Ubuntu, which I highly recommend you download that, that's going to give you the longest duration of support for your operating system. So we're going to be good from now all the way until 2027 before we have to worry about upgrading this system. And you can see we're subscribed to all updates. And if you don't want all updates, you can have a couple of other options here. You can select security and recommended updates, or just security updates only if you don't want any packages to be updated. My recommendation is that you do all updates, and there is a frequency of which you're going to check for updates. The default is daily, and I recommend that you do that. Now, because security is important, you want to be checking at least once a day. It's not going to be overkill to be doing that. But if for whatever reason you don't want to check once a day, you can extend this out, and you can set it to never if you want to, which I don't recommend. Now, next we start getting into some automation. So when there are security updates, you can choose what you want to do. You can display them immediately. You can download them automatically, or you can download and install them automatically. This is the default, and this is what I highly recommend that you do for security reasons. Now, as far as other updates, non-security updates, the default is to display those weekly. I like to display those immediately, but that really is up to you. Now, lastly, we have notify me of a new Ubuntu version. And I recommend you leave this on long-term support. Otherwise, you're going to be having to upgrade much more frequently to maintain your support for security updates. So we're going to leave that on long-term support versions. Authentication, we can add in trusted software providers in here, additional drivers. And here you can see that we're using a VMware virtual machine for this demonstration. And so we're using Open VMware tools. And so this shows here, and we can choose not to use that device if for whatever reason we don't want to do that. Then we have developer options, pre-release updates. I don't recommend you do any of that. And we don't have that enabled on this system. So we're going to go ahead and close out. We like everything we see here. And it's also going to now reload all the available software updates. We're going to say reload. And even though we had to reload, it should definitely be all the same updates that we had from the other location. So we're going to go ahead and install these now. We're going to get this system all up to date. And I'm going to let this go through. We can click on details and we'll have to enter our admin root password here to proceed. And if we click on details, it'll tell us what it's updating. So pretty cool. I'm going to let this process go through, and then I'll come back with you and we'll continue to go over this brand new Ubuntu system. Okay, everyone, so here we are back on our desktop. We ran our updates and we rebooted. And the Ubuntu desktop is pretty cool. You can see this folder over here we have. It says Home. I'm just going to move this around a little bit to make it easier. But if you tap in here, this is going to be where you're going to have some very familiar folders if you're a Windows user. Documents, downloads, music, pictures, public, snap, templates, and videos. And then, of course, you have your desktop. So very similar to a Windows system. Up here at the top, you have your date and time. And you have a do not disturb setting. So if you're doing some work and you don't want to be disturbed by notifications, you can turn that on. It's also going to display any calendar events you have on this particular day. Over here in the corner, we have a couple of different icons. We have a network icon, a sound icon, and a power icon. So if we click in this area, we get a couple of different options here. We can adjust the volume. We can look at our network connection, and we can turn it off. If we had Wi-Fi on this system, we'd be able to see that here. We can see our power plan, and we can access our power settings, which we'll get into a little bit later on in this video. We have our settings. We can lock this device, or we can log off or power out. And if we click here, you can see we have several different options: suspend, restart, power off, and log out. Over here on the left, we have our icons. This is going to be similar to the taskbar in Microsoft Windows. We're going to have a bunch of apps stuck over here. And by default, Ubuntu likes to use Firefox and Thunderbird for email. And we have our files here. You can see if we click that, we can launch that. This is going to be our App Store. We were already looking at that earlier. And we have LibreOffice. That's going to be the Office suite that's installed with Ubuntu. It's going to have your word processor, spreadsheets, and presentations. And here's where we can access our CD-ROM, floppy disk, and similar to the recycle bin on Windows, we have something here that says trash. So anything you delete, it goes to the trash can, and you can come in there to recover things. Now, unlike Windows, Windows has a start menu. Here we have a launcher. If we click on this, we're presented with all of our applications in a launcher format here. And you can drag it left and right. It's kind of like the start menu, but it's not a start menu. I kind of like the way it looks. It's very easy to use. The icons are nice and large. So this is basically how you get around. Another thing that's cool about this is if you have a ton of apps installed on your system, you can search up here. I'm just going to type in, and there you can see I typed in LIBR, and we can see a bunch of LibreOffice apps came up. Okay. And we want that to go away. We can take that away. The first thing I'm going to do is change our background. And the way I'm going to do that, I right-click on the desktop there, and I say change background. So let's look for something pretty cool. Well, I'm just going to go for something boring here. Make this a little easier to see. The right-click menu on the desktop, I get a bunch of different options. I get display settings, desktop icon settings, change background, open in terminal, show desktop in files, and I can arrange the icons. And I can select all and I can make a new folder there. So let's go into display settings really quickly, because I think this is one of the first places you're going to want to come to get the system to work the way you need it to work. And as you saw earlier, I scaled this up to 200% because I'm on a 4K display, and at 100% everything is really tiny. So I came in here and I adjusted the scale so that I could see everything. The next thing you have is fractional scaling, and this of course says that, you know, it may increase power consumption and that kind of thing. So what fractional scaling will allow you to do is, instead of going from 100 to 200%, you can go to 150%. For me, I'm going to turn that off, and I'm just going to scale it up to 200%. Okay. We can adjust the refresh rate. We can also change the resolution. And we can also change the orientation of the display. And under nightlight, this is something I like to turn on every system, just because it lets you sleep better at night, I feel. And so I always turn this on, and I set it to come on at sunset and go off at sunrise. You can adjust the color temperature here for that. That's your nightlight. The other way you can access settings is by coming up here and clicking on settings. And so let's look at our settings really quick. So first thing we have here is network. And we also have some other settings, like for a VPN or a proxy. Bluetooth. So if you have Bluetooth on your system, you can access your Bluetooth devices from here and your configuration. Background, we've already been in there. It allows you to change the desktop background, and you can add a picture. So if you have a picture somewhere else on the system, you can add that in here and use it as a background. Appearance. So in here we can start getting into like kind of the theme of the system. Right now it's on this orange color scheme, and I don't know, I kind of like this green a little bit better. We can adjust the size of the icons. I'm going to leave them on normal. Position of new icons. So this is where it's going to put new icons automatically. Show or hide our personal folder. That makes this thing show up or hide. Auto hide the dock. So if we want this to hide and then only present when we take our mouse over there, we can turn that on. Next, we have our icon size, so we can adjust the size of our icons here, and we can choose to show the dock on the primary display. And so if you have multiple displays, you can show the dock on the secondary display or any other display. You don't have to do it on the primary. Position on the screen, this is for the dock. So if we want the dock on the bottom, there it moves our dock to the bottom. It's going to be a little more like Windows. And we can also move it on to the right. I'm going to leave it on the left since that's the default location. Next, we can configure the dock's behavior. We can show volumes and devices. We can include unmounted volumes and include network volumes as well, and show the trash can. These are all on by default. So if you're not familiar with Linux, when they say mount, this basically means that if there's nothing in the drive, it's still going to show it. So if we uncheck this, it's going to hide drives when there's nothing in them. So we can uncheck that. And that's going to be the appearance of our dock. We also have a light and dark theme. You can see how that changes things. Okay. Turn our personal folder back on. Next, we have lock screen notifications. I always turn this off because I feel it's a privacy issue. If I have the system locked, I don't want anyone who walks up to the system to be able to see any notifications that I have. And then we can go in here and adjust notifications for different apps. So if you have an app that's notifying you too much or being annoying, you can come in here. So let's say Archive Manager, and we can adjust how we're notified for that particular app. We see we have notifications, sound alerts, pop-ups, and so on and so forth. And you can adjust how that app notifies you from in there. Next, we have search. And basically, this is going to control which search results are shown in the activities overview. And so we have all these different locations, and we can turn them on or off. We can also move them up and down in the list. By default, it's going to search the files first. Next, we have multitasking. And basically, we have hot corner here. And to me, this is similar to Windows, the snapping. When you move it up into the corner, it snaps it to a certain size on the screen. Active screen edges. So this tells you what that does. I'm going to leave the default behavior there. Under workspaces, we have dynamic workspaces. So any empty workspaces are automatically removed. Or we can have a fixed number of workspaces. So if we want, let me just show you that here. If we want 4 workspaces, we can have a fixed number of workspaces. And what workspaces are going to do is those are different desktops. So what we see here, we could have a bunch of stuff open, and that allows us to switch to another desktop that may have a whole different set of apps open. And it easily allows us to switch back and forth. A lot of folks may be more productive that way. I like dynamic. That way, anything that's not used is closed out. And then we can choose a multi-monitor setup where we see our workspaces. And then we have application switching. And we can include applications from all workspaces or applications from only the current workspace or only from the current monitor. So you can really customize your multitasking here. Next, we have applications. This is going to be similar to your applications on Windows or your other devices. If you tap on applications, in here it's going to show you all the applications that you have, and it allows you to control notifications, and it shows you the default handlers and all the other information associated with it. And you also have a shortcut to open it in the software panel. So you're not going to be able to remove the app from here. You're just going to get information and control things like notifications and handlers. And if we go in different apps, we can see all the different things here. Okay. Privacy. So this is going to be an important area. I recommend that everybody go into the privacy section first and foremost. And the reason why I recommend that is because it's important. And just because it's shown one way on my system doesn't mean it's going to be that way on your system. So you should always go into your privacy and check to make sure that you're comfortable with all the settings in there. So the first thing we have is connectivity. And connectivity is used to detect connection issues and helps you stay online. And some folks may consider the connectivity checking a privacy issue, so you can turn that on or off. Location services. Now, you can turn location off completely. I don't recommend you do that. When you do have apps that have location access, those apps will be shown in here, and you can control those apps individually. So that's what I recommend you do there. Thunderbolt. So you can, if you have Thunderbolt support on your system, you can control the security settings for that. File history and trash. So file history keeps a record of files that you've used, and the information is shared between applications. Makes it easier to find files that you might want to use. If you don't want that to happen, you can turn this off. You can also choose how long you want to keep that file history. Now the default is forever, and we can change this here from 37 to 1 day. We can also clear it completely. Also, the trash and temporary files. And so these I like to automatically delete trash and temporary files. And the default is 30 days for automatic delete period. I like to go down to 14 days. And we can click a button here and empty either one of those items if we choose to do so. Next we have screen. So this is going to be your screen lock. This is something I recommend everybody set up. It helps secure your system. If you get up and walk away from your screen, it will automatically lock it. The default here is 5 minutes, and I think that's appropriate in most cases. If you're really concerned, you could set that even lower. But the best thing for you to do is actually lock your system by going up here in the corner here and saying lock. Now, automatic screen lock delay, period after the screen blanks when the screen is automatically locked. This is going to lock it as soon as the screen turns off. Lock the screen on suspend, you definitely want that. And you can see we also have the option to enable or disable notifications on the lock screen. We've already turned those off, so those are already off. Last thing we have is diagnostics, and we can choose when we want to send error reports to Canonical, and right now it's set to manual. We can set it to never, or we can set it to automatic. Manual is going to be appropriate in most cases. If you are having problems with the system and you need to send an error report, you'll be able to do that in here. Next, we have our online accounts. This is what we looked at when we first set up the system. You can see we have our Microsoft account listed in here, and we also have a number of different other accounts, and we have even enterprise-based accounts. IMAP and SMTP, Microsoft Exchange, Flickr, Google, and so on and so forth. We have sharing, and we can see the name of this computer, and we can turn different things on or off, such as remote desktop and media sharing. Next, we're going to go into sound. This is all your sound settings for the system. So it shows you your output device. We can do over amplification if we want. We can adjust the volume levels for system sounds. We can change the output device. We can test it.
Front, left, front, right.
We can change the output device. We can run a test. We have our input device and the volume, and we can choose our alert sound. Under power, here we can see that we can have two different power schemes here, balanced or power saver. We can also configure the screen blank. Right now it's going to turn off after 5 minutes. And we can configure automatic suspend. Right now automatic suspend is off, but if you want to automatically suspend the system, this will save a lot of power. We can enable that, and we can choose a time frame where we want to automatically suspend the system. And this will be if the system is idle for a certain period of time. Next, we have displays. We've already been in here and made some changes. Mouse and touchpad. So primary button, we have a 2-button mouse. So right now it's the left button. You can change that to the right if you're left-handed. Mouse speed, we can adjust that. Natural scrolling moves the content, not the view. Next, we have our keyboard. We can do some customization in here. We have printers. This is where you're going to come in and add printers. removable media, and this selects how media is handled when you insert media into the system. The default is it's going to ask you what to do, and I recommend that you leave it that. CD audio, DVD audio, music player, and photos. So you don't want the system necessarily to take any automatic actions when you plug something in. That's usually not a good idea. The fact that it's going to ask you what to do, I think, is the appropriate thing to do, but you can change that in here. You can set it to automatically launch an application, to not do anything at all, or to open a folder. That was for CD audio, DVD video, same thing. You can customize the actions in there. Next, we have color. So we can do some color calibration if we want. Region and language. Accessibility, we have a lot of different accessibility options here. Okay. This is where we're going to manage our users. Under users, we can see that we're here, and you will need to unlock the system by entering the admin password, also known as the root password in the Linux world. And if we want to add a user, we come up here and we click on the green Add User, and we can choose the type of user they are. I always recommend you have a standard user, unless you really specifically want an administrator. Okay. That's where you manage your users. Default applications. So this is where we're going to manage all the default applications for handling different things, such as websites, mail, calendar, music, video, and photos. Lastly, we have our date and time, and we have automatic date and time set. So here's automatic time zone. I really like this because it will automatically update the time zone if we travel. Right now we're on the East Coast, but if we travel to the West Coast, we want it to automatically update the time zone to the correct time. Lastly, we have the format. Right now it's set to 24 hours. I like the AM, PM, so we're going to change it to that. And lastly, in here we have About. And this is going to tell us all the information about the system. And it'll even allow us to view software updates. Okay, everyone. Last two things I'm going to show you here are two things that you need to set up right away. One is your antivirus, and the next is your backup situation. So we're going to launch the App Store. And when we launch into the App Store, we're going to search for Antivirus. And one of the things that comes up is ClamTK. And Clam Antivirus is included with Ubuntu, and this is just a graphical interface, if you will, that allows us to interact with it. And so you're going to install this. We've already got it installed, but this is where you're going to come to install that. Once you have it installed, we're going to go in here, and we're going to scroll over, and we have this ClamTK here. And we can even move it over to our quick launch if we want. And it's going to open up here. And we've got a whole bunch of different things here. We've got settings. And we want to scan for potentially unwanted apps. Use heuristic scanning, which I like. We want to scan files beginning with a dot. We also want to scan files larger than 20 megabytes. And we want to scan directories recursively and check for updates to the program. Now, some of these options will slow things down, but it's important when you're doing virus scanning to have that. We have a whitelist, so if we want to exclude certain directories. In network, we can set some different network parameters. We don't have a proxy or anything like that, so we're not going to change anything there. So next you're going to have the scheduler. So this is important. This is going to run automatic scans so that you don't have to come in here and do things manually. Now, you can set a maximum of, I believe, 23 hours. So we'll set it to 23 hours and 59 minutes, right? So that'll run one scan per day. And then the time to update the signatures, I would say 12 hours. Every 12 hours would be good. History, we can come in here and look at the history. The quarantine will show us everything that's been quarantined by the application. Updates, this tells us the antivirus signatures that we have installed. We can scan a file, a directory, and we can look at analysis reports. So let's go ahead and scan our home directory. And you can see it scanned our home directory and no threats were found. The next thing we're going to do is look at our backups. So if we come in here and we go into our utilities and we click on backups, it's going to tell us to keep our important files safe. We can create our first backup and we can also restore from a previous backup. So we're going to say create our first backup. And it's going to ask us, what do we want to back up? Right now, it's got our home folder selected to back up. But if we want to back up everything, let's say we want to back up the entire computer, we can back up everything. And we can also set folders to ignore. So obviously, it's not going to back up our trash or our downloads. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to leave it at our home directory, however. And we're going to say forward. And it's going to ask us where we want to back this up to. And if you look here, we've got this cool option, Google Drive. So if you want to back it up to Google Drive, you can do that. And it will automatically back up your information to Google Drive. The other thing you can do is you can back it up to a network server. So if you have a NAS, or you can also back it up to a local folder if you have an external drive or drive in the system where you want to create your backup. I'm going to say a local folder, and I'm just going to put it in our temp. Okay. Now, I highly recommend you password protect your backup. This way, if somebody else gets a hold of your file, they will not be able to restore the contents without your password. Because I'm doing this video and I'm not really worried about this, I'm going to say allow restoring without a password. And it's going to proceed to back everything up, which it's done. And the next thing we can do is say backup automatically. So I'm going to turn that on. And it's going to back up every week, once a week. And if I go up here and I go into preferences, I can change that. So I can change the location. I can change how long I want to keep the backups. So you may not want to keep your backups forever. You may want to just keep them for 3 months or 6 months. Now, if you're backing up a lot of stuff, you may want to keep it only 3 months. So that's what I'm going to select here. Backup automatically is selected. And then we can even change the frequency. So instead of weekly, I can do it daily, which is what I recommend that you do. Now, there are more advanced backup utilities out there, but this is a really cool backup utility that's built right into Ubuntu. Now, lastly, if you're backing up to Google Drive, you may want to do that less frequently because it will fill your space up fairly quickly depending on the amount of data that you have. Those are the good first steps, folks. So the last thing I'm going to show you, folks, is how to install Google Chrome. I know a lot of folks like Chrome over Firefox. Firefox is the browser that's built into Ubuntu. I'm just going to go to chrome.google.com. And we're going to say download Chrome. And we're going to download the 64-bit for Debian Ubuntu. Now let's go over to our files, downloads, and here is Google Chrome. This is the installer. We're going to right click. We're going to open this with other application. And we're going to choose software install. We're going to say select. And this is going to bring up the software install. And as you can see, it says Google Chrome is a browser that combines a minimal design with sophisticated technology to make the web faster, safer, and easier. And it has the version here. And the software repository is identified. And we're going to say install. We will need to enter our admin/root password here. So as you can see, installing software is a tiny bit different, but once you get the hang of it and you've done it a couple times, it's very easy. And now it looks like we've successfully installed Google Chrome. So let's go ahead and close this. Let's remove that from our favorites. We're going to go in here. And there we have Google Chrome. And let's add that up here to our favorites by what I just did is left click, held it in and dragged it over there. Okay. Now if we go ahead and click that, we have make Google Chrome the default browser and automatically send usage, statistics, and crash reports to Google. Both of those are fine with me. Let's say OK. And here we are. We have Google Chrome. At this point, you're going to say get started. If you've already got a Google account, you'll be able to sign in, and it should import all of your shortcuts and extensions and all the other settings that you have in Google Chrome on your other devices. That's going to wrap this one up, folks. What do you think of Ubuntu Desktop? Let us know down in the comments section. As always, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notified. Thank you guys so much for watching.